Now, welcome to another episode of Real Estate. We're going to be talking about the CEPO and the fact that Argentina doesn't have a CEPO anymore and what that actually means. So let's dig right in and get this one up. All right, so the CEPO no more. CEPO is basically currency restriction, and what it meant in practice is that there was a cap on how many dollars people could buy, individuals could buy at the official rate. So there was a cap, a max of $200 per month per person, and that restriction was for any type of account. So anything over $200, you could still buy that, but that would come into a different rate, which was the MEP rate, which basically had a 30% tax on top. So what changed? So now these restrictions are now gone, together with a floating exchange rate between bands. So there's currency bands of 1,000 and 1,400 pesos. We'll get into that in the details of that a little bit further ahead in this video. One thing that did change is that you can only exchange $100 in cash or buy $100 in cash. So if you go to a bank with what is it now, 1,100 or 11,000 pesos, basically now you can that's the max that you can switch or swap per month. But of course, you can deposit as many pesos as you want in your account, and then change everything through home banking to dollars. So basically, it's to avoid a run on the dollar with black money, and that's also why the blue rate and Cuevas will still be a thing. Even though there's no more currency restrictions, so that will still stay the same in terms of Cuevas exchanging at the blue rate. That won't go away, but the expectation is that the blue rate will hover closer to the official rate, and it might even drop below, depending on the demand and supply for dollars. So another thing that changed is there's no more central bank intervention between certain rates, and there's an easier in and out flow of USD. No more parking required. There used to be a 24-hour parking if you sold bonds or stocks, and you couldn't get those dollars out for 24 hours. That's also gone, and it's also easier to move dollars from broker accounts abroad. So if you have a broker account in the US and you have a broker account here in your name, you can just move those dollars back and forth without any issues. Now, of course, in practice, I'm not sure if that really works that way, if it's that easy. And I still suspect like many people will go through a Cueva or other means just because they don't really trust the banking system or have experienced delays and very annoying bureaucracy around getting money into the country with a normal bank account or a wire transfer. I've had it myself too. I mean, you could always transfer money to yourself or to third parties, but since the central bank is always in the middle, that could actually take some time, and I just recommend against it. You might want to try, with small amounts if you really want to try and see if that's easier now versus before. But yeah, so far it does seem that the inflow and outflow is a lot easier, and especially for foreign capital that is flowing into the country. Now, what would this mean for property prices and the property market in Buenos Aires in particular? So that's what we're going to dive into in this video. But first, let's give a little bit of background of CEPO and the currency restrictions and why it matters and what it has done to Argentina in the past. So Argentina has almost 100 years of history when it comes to CEPO and currency restrictions. Now, if we look at, this is a nice article that I found, which is really kind of crazy if you look at it. It's almost 100 years of CEPO. Started in 31, and here you can see, like, there's almost no point in time where it's been taken off, and it always takes on like a different jacket and just a little bit different. And we've been in this on and off CEPO for a considerable amount of time. So I'll put the link in the show notes, so you can go to that link as well if you're interested. But it's kind of impressive. And if you look at what it has done to the GDP per capita, these restrictions here, you can see that around 31 is when it started, and GDP per capita has been going down ever since. Here, in the 1990s, we had the peso pegged to the dollar. That was also correspondingly a moment of growth, at least before 98 when the tequila crisis hit. And as we will see, this was also the moment when a lot of Argentines were actually able to buy their first home through a mortgage. Afterwards, this all cratered, of course, with the 2001 crisis. This was the time that there wasn't really a CEPO, but then in 2011, the CEPO got installed again by Cristina, and then everything just dragged down. And here in the aftermath of the Macri presidency, in the last months of his presidency, he installed the CEPO again, and it spiraled all down until today. So basically now in 2025, this year, Milei and his economic team, they took off the CEPO. So now there's no more currency restrictions. Anybody can buy the amount of dollars they want. Foreign non-residents can have access to the Argentine bond market in pesos, so they can start to carry trade. Now, what the current esquema cambiario, so the current exchange regime, how it works is basically the central bank will not intervene unless it hits the upper band or the lower band. They can intervene, but in practice, they'll probably not do so. So whenever it hits the lower band, they can intervene. When it hits the higher band, they will sell dollars to try to stop the peso from dropping. But at the same time, the bands expand by 1% on each end. So at the end of the year and into 2026, the idea is that this eventually will become not needed at all, and that it will be a completely floating exchange rate. Now, in the past, this has been tried, and in 2018, for example, it became a problem when this was during Macri's presidency. They also had these currency bans. This was the zone of non-intervention, but at the same time, and 2018 is also when Macri had to run to the IMF to get one of the biggest loans ever, because basically they weren't able to sustain the lifting of the currency restrictions, and there was just a dollar demand was so high that it was spiraling out of control. So what is to say that this time will be different? Now, the one thing that really is different this time is the surplus. If you can see, in all these years, there's always a deficit. And these years, there was a surplus, but during these years, Argentina was in default. So it doesn't really count if you do not pay your dues. It's very easy to be in a surplus. So here, this is one of the first years in a lot of years that Argentina for the first time is in a surplus again, genuinely. So if that maintains, that trend maintains itself, and they can sustain this surplus, then it might actually be different this time. But you never know. Argentina is very volatile. But if the economic team is able to sustain this, I am positive, cautiously optimistic that this will work out this time. Now, and if we look at the real estate market in the city of Buenos Aires, so in Cava, and we look at what happened with the amount of listings during this time. So in 2013, there was already the CEPO was already in place for 2 years, and as you can see, the amount of properties listed just went up until 2015, which is when at the end of 2015, basically, was when Macri was elected and he took off the CEPO. So there you can see that there was a drop, and then around 2018 it bottomed, and this was also when the CEPO was installed again at the mid 2019, right after the midterms, and it was clear that the runoffs actually, and it was clear that the Kirchner's would come back. Macri installed the CEPO again, and this is when listed properties started to skyrocket, the number of listed properties. So here you can see that has really crawled up, and there's still a lot of inventory piled up that can be sold. Now here you can see it a little bit clearer. There's around 70,000 properties listed on Sonaprop right now. And if you look at the high time of Macri, when there was still no CEPO, and there were a lot of mortgages being issued, and it just climbed up. This was when the currency crisis hit and when Macri had to run to the IMF. A lot of people started listing their homes. It climbed up, and there was actually a dip here, which was that's probably around COVID. There was just not that much movement. It actually dropped, but then as you can see around 2022, 2023, there was so many properties listed, and it was just like the market had just come to a complete standstill, and now it is slowly being eaten up, that whole inventory. But we still have a long way to go till we get to 40, 50,000 levels. So there's still a lot on the market, and especially in the used segment, there's a lot in the market that is still priced a lot lower than we see for new properties, for example. So I still think here there's a healthy margin of deals that you can find, but they will get eaten up quickly with the without the CEPO. So also, if you can see here, the amount of deeds in terms of volume, this was the absolute cratering of deeds, basically on a month-to-month basis. As you can see, that was right when the currency crisis hit in March, May 2018. Deeds just cratered month over month. Then the pandemic, it had a little spike, and then basically here it started gradually going up. And let me just go back. This was probably the absolute bottom after, 6 years? 6 years of cratering prices, and around 50% in real terms in dollars that everything decreased. And as you can see now, it's really starting to spike, and that's also because of mortgage volume. And without the CEPO, it's probably going to go up a lot more. So if you can see here, for example, this is data from February, and these are all the months of February compared. So if you look at already this year in 2025, and this was before the CEPO was lifted, so this was with currency restrictions, the number of deeds, the volume is actually higher than in 2018 when there was no CEPO under Macri, which is absolutely insane. So if you can see this and then figure out what's going to happen without the currency restrictions, this will, these 2 years will get obliterated. Well, these were, relatively high years if you look at the historic volume. We can also see that looking at the rotation and how long properties are listed. Here we can see the average is trending down. So the amount of time that a listing is listed on a website like Zoneprop, it used to be 17 months. It's now all the way down to 13 months, and the rotation is changing quickly. This is for a used property of a 2-bedroom used property in Almagro, which is like kind of the average for the middle class, basically. So yeah, that's trending down quickly as well. So properties are starting to rotate faster. And here you can see the amount of salaries needed to buy 1 square meter in Buenos Aires. We're almost all the way back to these levels. And I think right now, actually, if we take the exchange rate of this month, we're actually close to this level again. So that means that people with a peso salary have more and more ability to buy square meters in Buenos Aires, which will also push prices up, and it will also increase volume. What it also means is that they will have easier access to mortgages. So all those factors are just pushing up prices, and I think we're really in for a good couple of months, perhaps years, depending on how everything works out. But it's looking very, very positive right now, and I'm very happy with the with the properties that I was able to scoop up in 2023 when it was still, very bottomy. So here we can see the February mortgages over time. So each year for February, you can still see that in 2018 there were more mortgages issued versus this year February. Now, but this was without CEPO and this was with CEPO. Here also without. 2017 is when it started. It was actually only a few months. If you look at it during Macri, it was maybe a year in total that there were a lot of mortgages, and then it dropped again, after they ran to the IMF and everything started to become really expensive, because salaries were also very high at this point, way higher than they are now, relatively as well. So the salaries still have a lot of room to grow. Credit in banks is good. I mean, the banks are all pretty solid here compared to maybe some other countries. So there's still a lot of room for issuing more mortgages. And now that the rates are not as attractive for banks, I think that will actually happen, and at an increasing rate in terms of issuance. If you look at the historic issuance of mortgages over time, just for the city of Buenos Aires, you can just see the insane volume in the 90s, where, and that's where the saying comes from, con Menem hice la casa. Under Menem, I bought my house, which is basically, this right now would be 40,000 would be more than half of everything that's listed on Zoneprop. And the amount of properties haven't increased by that much, So this is really, really insane if you compare it to the other peak, which was during, Macri, the last one. This actually, is just a little blip if you compare it to this. So right now the mortgage issuance is still very low. if we can get back to this level, which I think it will be probably in the next couple of months that the mortgage issuance will get to this level. And, if everything remains stable, it is not crazy to think that eventually we'll get, here, which is 1 out of every 2 properties with a mortgage, basically. So yeah, very bullish overall if things remain stable and the whole lifting of the currency restrictions works out as expected. So yeah, that's basically the conclusion is numbers are going to go up. The average price per square meter is still very low. If you compare it to, dollar inflation prices in the past, it's still low. Salaries are picking up, so purchasing power will get you more square meters in the near future. So that also puts pressure on prices. Then volume is probably going to increase. It's easier to take money in and out of the country. Most property sales will still go through cash settlements. I mean, most dueños, owners here, they want cash, or if they have a bank account offshore, they'll also accept wires to a U.S. account or European account, for example. But it's not that common, and really 90% or so of all transactions are still done in cash. And I don't see that changing anytime soon, to be honest, because there's just so many small items that sometimes are taken out of the deed and are done outside, especially if you are buying a house or a PH, like a propiedad horizontal. There's usually a lot of remodeling and additions that have not been included in the original deed and that cannot be included in the new one just because they haven't been put on paper in the registry. So those will be all transacted outside of the contract, and for that, of course, you need cash. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents here. I think it's all very positive in terms of property prices, and still a decent opportunity to buy them. If we look at some of the rotation here, let's see. This is one of the things that I wanted to show. This is the average price per square meter for March. So here you can really see on a per neighborhood basis what the for a 1-bedroom apartment. And here we have the 2-bedroom apartments. You can see that the price drops slightly for those. And these are 3-bedroom apartments. So yeah, overall, very positive. And let me know in the comments what you think and where you think this will be headed, and if the CEPO will be a positive or a negative impact on the long run, if they will get back to another CEPO despite the surplus, and of course, if they're able to maintain the surplus. All right, looking forward to hearing your thoughts. Ciao.